time for the Daily Planet podcast show. So sit back, relax, and give us a go. Scott and Matt and maybe a guest have undertaken an epic pod quest. We're gonna ramble on about movies and books and television and directors and film festivals and this really long list of stuff that I know nothing about, but they gave it to me and they really wanted me to read through it. And that's all I can really say about it, but it's gonna be great. Okay, start the show.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Planet podcast, your bi-weekly podcast for all things movies, TV, books, and anything else we feel like talking about. My name is Scott Daly, and I am your host. And I'm joined this week by my co-host and perpetual dreamer, Matt Freeman. Matt, how's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty well, Scott. I'm not quite sure where the boundary between reality and the dream world lies, but I'm gonna continue going on this podcast while cantaloupes fall from the sky and tangerine sprouts from one of my ears and a snake comes out of it.
Sounds pretty normal and completely explanatory. Also joining us this week, we have our resident anime expert, Michael Grubb.
それは正しいです.
Is that real word?
That's for everyone to figure out.
This week on the podcast, we are covering the 2006 Japanese animated film Paprika, written and directed by Satoshi Kon. Yes, that's right. I'm watching anime again. Why are we doing this, Matt?
Well, Scott, it's because it's time for another one of our backer reward episodes, a policy which I push for implementing in order to trick you into watching anime. Those that have pledged to us at the $20 level get the opportunity to pick a topic, any topic, and have us talk about it. This time around, it was Patron Brent who finally broke the seal, Scott, and decided it was time to make you watch some anime.
Yeah, but because I don't believe in suffering alone, we decided to bring along Michael for this wonderful ride. So thanks for doing this for us, Michael.
You're welcome. I like anime.
I know. That's why I was kind of like, I'm probably not going to have anything positive to say. Matt is a coin toss, but Michael here, he always has positive things to say.
So do you know who Satoshi Kon is, Scott?
I am generally aware of Satoshi Kon. I don't think I've seen any of his films before, but I've heard of them.
There was a series on Cartoon Network Adult Swim when we were youths called Paranoia Agent that he did. Were you aware of that?
No.
Oh. Well, then I have nothing to say to you. But it was a cool series, or I should say it was a cool premise and it had a cool kind of atmosphere to it and tone to it. And it was about like this kid on roller skate. Basically, like it was Japan, and there kept being all these incidents of a crime where like a kid on roller skates with a bent baseball bat was like attacking people.
How was the baseball bat bent?
It was bent. It made it look cooler, mostly.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. Anyway, you should potentially watch that.
I don't know about that. So this will be a full spoilers discussion of Paprika. So if you haven't watched it before, do that. Or maybe don't. I guess it depends on what we say in this review. Yeah, but it is available on most streaming platforms if you do want to check out Paprika. Yes, it's going to be an interesting review. Before we get into all that, guys, I think I wanted to cover some news.
This is Daily Planet News.
Cool. Things are still happening?
Things are always happening, Michael, perpetually. Wow. We don't have any specific stories to cover this week, but for whatever reason, this week in June saw like all these different movies drop trailers. I think there were like over 20 trailers dropped this week. It was crazy. I don't know why they decided that this was the week for it, but that happened. So I thought it would be a fun opportunity to play In or Out, our game where we watch a trailer and then decide snap judgment wise if we are in on this movie or out.
Out.
And it's always It's always fun when Michael is here because
Out.
Exactly.
Let's see if those playing at home can get a bingo, which is just Michael saying out to everything.
Yeah.
All right, let's start it off with Wreck-It Ralph 2. Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Out.
This is the sequel. Let me finish my
All right,
thing.
go ahead.
This is the sequel to the original Wreck-It Ralph movie. It's directed by Phil Johnson and Rich Moore. And Matt, in or out?
Oh, I mean, it's Pixar. Or is it Pixar?
It's Disney. It's not Pixar.
It's one of those two things.
It's Disney Animations, yeah.
It's Disney Animation. I think Wreck-It Ralph was pretty good. I liked it. And
yeah.
I don't even know if I've shown that one to my kids, but I just liked it myself as a person. And I'm sure I'll show this to them, and I'm sure they'll like it. So,
all right, Michael, go ahead.
Out.
Why?
I just didn't see it.
Okay.
I didn't see the first one, so it seems like way too much of a investment to plan on watching 2 movies.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot
fair.
of work.
So I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Disney Princesses section of this thing. When we saw the first trailer, I was worried that this entire movie was going to just be, hey, the internet is weird jokes. And it seems like they're not just doing that. I mean, seeing Cinderella smash her glass slipper to cut someone with it is pretty great.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be funny.
Yeah, I'm definitely in on this. First, you're right. First one was really enjoyable. I hope this is just as good.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Bumblebee. This is the Transformers prequel directed by Travis Knight, who you guys might know from the Leica stop motion animation studio. He is the CEO of that studio, and he's the one that directed Kubo and the Two Strings, a movie that I quite loved. So, Matt, what did you think of this trailer?
I didn't like this trailer very much. I guess I'm like tentatively mildly open-minded about the movie itself because of what you just told me about who's behind it. Like there's could be good, but the trailer doesn't really sell me on it. It just looks kind of generic.
All right, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, out. It does look generic. Transformers isn't an intellectual property that really ever had any appeal to me. And the fact that this is now basically Transformers 5 or 6 or whatever the heck doesn't really, inspire me with a great sense of trust in the vision.
I am in on this movie. I actually think this is a great trailer. I think the movie is doing things that hopefully take the Transformers franchise in a new direction. I think keeping it away from Michael Bay, as much as I like the guy, is probably a good call. I thought the action that we saw in this trailer was a lot more coherent and well shot than anything I've seen in any of the Transformers movies. And I think the thing that I like most about this is that it seems like it's taking a boy in his first car figment of an idea that the first Transformers movie had and then abandoned to get big and explosive and have weird energy cubes. It feels like it's taking that and making a whole movie about that. And I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that is the angle it's looking like. It's just the trailer doesn't particularly seem like it's going to be too grounded, but I guess we'll have to see.
Mm-hmm. All right, next up is the Lego Movie 2. It's a movie that does not come out until 2019. This is a next year movie. The trailer came out. All right, Michael, go ahead. Why are you in besides just your absurd love of Lego things?
Well, as regular viewers of the podcast will know, critics acclaimed that Lego Batman movie was the #1 movie of last year, and the first Lego movie was probably the #1 movie of whatever year that came out in, 2 or 3 years earlier. So it looks awesome. It looks like the Lego Movie 2 Fury Road, which was a great movie, the Fury Road one.
/ Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy. So it seems like they still know what was funny. Hopefully it still has some like nice emotional core behind it, like the first Lego movie did, and isn't just silly. But I'm gonna definitely give it a shot.
I think it will, because I think you can sort of see the conceit hiding within the plot of the trailer.
I mean, the thing that looks like it kicked off the end of the last movie was the guy being forced to like share with his sister, and now we've got Lego Duplo blocks coming from outer space or something. I think the exploration of that is going to be interesting. Maybe it's. I wonder if there's an angle to it where the kid is older now, and therefore he only likes cool things, and it could be an exploration of that.
Yeah, well, I'm also super in on this because I expect it to be incredibly awesome, and the trailer was really funny.
Everything is awesome.
Not everything.
Everything
Michael.
is cool when you're part of a team.
I am absolutely into it. It's interesting because probably a couple of years ago I would have said I'm worried about this movie because both Phil Lord and Chris Miller have stepped away. They are not making this one like they made the first one. But in between that time, we got Lego Batman, which was not made by them, which was surprisingly good. Even the Lego Ninjago movie, which I didn't like as much as those other ones, was surprising too. I mean, like, it's not a great movie, but it was very enjoyable. So yeah, I'm in on these. They seem to be able to do no wrong. So, and the trailer does look good.
Yeah, totally.
All right, next up we have Mortal Engines, the new Peter Jackson film. I don't think he's directing it. I think he's just producing this one. But it's written by Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, who both made, as you guys know, wrote the Lord of the Rings movies. This one comes out in December. Matt, what's up?
Tentatively waiting for more information.
All right.
It looks interesting, but not compelling yet. So we'll have to see.
Michael.
I think out at first I was going to say in, because this is like definitely the setting of movie that I should enjoy by all accounts. And I'm usually willing to give like kind of fantasy, post-apocalyptic, diesel punky movies a shot, but the trailer makes it look pretty shallow, to be honest. It didn't excite me. It didn't really interest me in a plot or characters or anything like it should have, after hooking me on the visuals of the world.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I think I'm out on this one. I guess we should say it's based on the novel by Philip Reeve, which, have either of you read that? I have not.
No.
No.
Yeah, and I think the visuals are very impressive. The idea of these moving cities is very awe-inspiring, but man, this trailer just didn't do a lot for me. The plot seems pretty generic. I think the thing that rubbed me the most was the dialogue. Just seems like, I was talking to you about this last week, Matt, where it was just like this idea of whoever gets this thing will be the one that will rule the world, and I'm just like, I'm kind of exhausted by the MacGuffin thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't seem special.
I don't want to contrast it too much with other trailers in this list, but like most of the trailers, if they're a trailer that's going to tell you the plot of the movie or put a lot of character and plot stuff in front of you, then it's going to be really compelling stuff. It's going to be like some of the more compelling moments of the movie, and you're like, just to make you like, oh, that's really interesting. This movie, they just seem to have like summarized the introduction of the movie in a not terribly compelling or propulsive way, and you're just like, yeah, well, don't really care to see the rest, so I guess that means it's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I reserve the right to change my mind, but as of now, I was not impressed.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to Operation Finale. This is the biopic based off of the hunt for Adolf Eichmann. Matt, in or out?
I'm pretty in. Pretty in. I don't actually know this story other than like knowing the general strokes of the historical events surrounding this thing that actually happened. But I would love to know more about it. I mean, hopefully it's like accurate, because that would be a bit of a shame if it wasn't. I guess like as accurate as you can get, right?
Yeah.
Reasonably. I'm in.
All right, Michael.
Out.
Why?
Boycott on biopics. Enough said.
Is there a reason besides that it's a biopic, or just
No
that
other
it's a biopic?
reason.
Okay. I think the movie looks very good. I am definitely in on this. I think the trailer holds tension very well. I am a homer for Oscar Isaac. I will see just about anything he's in. So yeah, I'm definitely in on this one. The director of this movie is Chris Weitz, who doesn't have like the best filmography. He directed one of the Twilight movies. He directed The Golden Compass. He directed About a Boy, which is not a bad movie. And he's also apparently an uncredited director for American Pie.
Bit of a change in tone on this one.
Seems like a very different kind of movie, yeah. So, but the trailer looks really solid. I hope this one turns out pretty good.
Yeah.
This one has like awards written all over it, I think.
Because it's a biopic.
Not just because it's a biopic.
And hence it deserves my disdain.
That's absurd.
I see through it.
Hey,
And thus
Michael,
it is
have
nothing.
you ever heard, do you know the details of the story of the
No.
hunt for Adolf Eichmann? So
No.
maybe you could watch this movie about it where it dramatizes
Right.
the events
If
and then
I
you'll
want-
learn something.
No, Scott, because biopics aren't about learning things about people. It's about elevating them to like great man status in a way that is artificial and emotionally manipulative for the sake of seeking best acting Oscars.
I completely 100% disagree, and I think you need to watch more biopics.
Someday you'll see.
I don't think any popular biopic of recent years has elevated people to godlike status. It's actually a very incisive look into people's lives
Say
and the
God
complicated
status.
lives that they live. Well, that's no, that's wrong. All right, next movie. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is the animated film done by, I think it's Sony's animation team, that follows not Peter Parker as Spider-Man, but Miles Morales. Matt, are you in or out?
I think I'm in. I'm very curious about this and how this connects to other things, but I mean, I love Spider-Man and everything about this looks great. It seems like it's a pretty fun like slant on the story, and yeah, I expect it to be really fun and good. So yeah, in.
All right, Michael, does this fall under your superhero boycott?
Yep, out, boycotted.
It's a cartoon though.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, but it's not a cartoon using CGI toys
I see.
as a proxy.
Oh,
I see. Yeah.
I think that's the only loophole.
I think this trailer looks amazing. Out of all the trailers we're talking about today, I think this is one of my favorites. I love what they're doing with the art style. I love that it almost literally looks like a comic book come to life. Like, I think they said that they removed a frame in the frame rate to make it a little more twitchy, to make it look a little more comic booky. And I was worried about that, but I think it in action looks really great.
Yeah.
I'm really into all the voices here. Haley Steinfeld, who is in Bumblebee, is playing Gwen Stacy in this, so that's pretty great.
Yeah, that's fun.
I never thought I'd say Jake Johnson is a great voice for Peter Parker, but I think Jake Johnson is a great voice for Peter Parker. And one of the other things I was worried about this is that they made it seem like we're going to finally give Miles Morales his own movie, and it's actually just going to be a Spider-Man ensemble movie. But from this trailer, it really seems like this is going to be a Miles Morales story with some other people in it, and I think that's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
So definitely in on this one. This one comes out this year in December, so
Cool.
we'll be seeing it before the end of the year. All right, moving on. Next, we've got A Star is Born. This is the directed by Bradley Cooper, starring Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. It is a remake of a 1936 movie of the same name that was also remade, I think, 3 other times since then. One of them had Judy Garland in it. One of it was updated for the Rock era, and this seems like another update. I think they've been trying to make this movie for a long time. I think back in 2010, Clint Eastwood was supposed to make it. I think Beyonce was attached at one point. It's gone through a lot of changes, but here it is. Matt, what did you think of A Star Is Born?
It seemed pretty cool. I didn't know that this was a remake, and I was like, are they making a biopic of Lady Gaga's life? Because this kind of sort of matches a couple of details of what I know about her, but no, apparently it's sort of the inverse of that.
Yeah.
And it looks charming, and if I'm in the mood for like a romantic film, I will probably watch it. I'm not quite sure if that's the tone of it. Like, is this a romantic movie, or is this more of a tragedy? Like, you can't really tell from the trailer, which is fine.
Yeah. I'd say a little of column A, a little of column B.
Okay.
Based on what I know of the previous films, but
okay.
Cool. All right, Michael.
Out.
It's not a biopic.
It's a biopic. It's got. It may not technically be a biopic, but it feels like what it feels like is that biopics are now spreading outside their quarantine zone of biopic movies, and if we don't start boycotting it now, it'll infect every movie that comes out ever, and they'll all be biopics.
So I just want to understand, your complaint against biopics is that they take real people and elevate them to godlike status. So this is a movie about two fake people that are definitely not real people. That's just a drama of one suffering from alcoholism and the other being an aspiring musician who feels like she's not good enough for it.
That's
and
exactly
it's a drama
the kind of crap
their
that they
relationship.
put in a biopic.
But if your complaint about biopics is that it's doing this to manipulate us by changing real people, then that's not what this is.
That's why it's so insidious this time.
Yeah.
So you just don't like dramas, is what you're getting at. I mean, this is just a relationship drama.
Interesting.
Scott, he's got a point. He's got a point, Scott. When you look at it that way, every one of these movies is you can see the tendrils of biopicdom all over it. It's spreading, Mike. Oh my God.
You would all be wise to be wary of this.
Oh my God. This is the most nonsensical boycott of all your boycotts.
Boycotted.
All right.
You don't want to see Lady Gaga in a movie?
No.
I'm sure you do.
Wait, haven't I
know you
already?
do.
She's been in other things.
She's been in American Horror Story, the television show. I don't know if she's been in an acting role in a movie. Certainly not a lead acting role in a movie.
Oh.
That's like the main draw for me here, is to see Lady Gaga in a movie.
I think Bradley Cooper looks great in this too. I mean, he's like,
Sure.
He's definitely like some of the makeup work. Like there's a shot in this trailer where he's like calling out to her from inside a car, and his face just looks like, I am dying of alcoholism. And I think he's channeling something that I'm really into.
Cool.
All right, next up we have Serenity, the 2008 or 2018 movie Serenity, not the older one. This is a movie written and directed by Stephen Knight, who you guys will probably remember as the writer and director of Locke, the movie starring Tom Hardy that came out. Man, I think it was 5 years ago now. He's also written a few other films. Apparently, he wrote a draft of World War Z 2, according to IMDb.
Good for him.
Yeah. So, Matt, what did you think of Serenity?
This looks. I just, for some reason, was almost like my favorite trailer on this list, and I can't quite say why. I was just like, yeah, this is my bag. I'm in for these people doing these things and all these seedy, terrible criminal plot twists.
Awesome. Michael, go ahead.
Out.
Why?
Okay, murder on a yacht, right? I just can't help but think, why not a train?
Okay, are you out to make a train joke? Or are you out because you don't actually like the movie?
I wasn't really that interested in it. It seemed... I can't really even say why. It just
I think Michael just doesn't like dramas, like Scott said.
I think that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I am definitely in on this one. The cast is great. Anne Hathaway, Diane Lane, Matthew McConaughey, even Jason Clarke looking rough. He doesn't look good in this movie, but I'm into his performance at least. And it looks weird. I mean, I trust Stephen Knight almost implicitly now. I think Locke is one of the most underrated movies of the last few years. Man, this looks weird and confusing and definitely into it.
I enjoyed Locke.
It's a drama though, Michael.
No. I'm still working I'm still trying to sort this out.
Don't you owe this one a try, Michael? Don't you owe it?
We'll see.
Isn't that how it works?
I think that is precisely how it works.
Yeah.
All right, we got two more. Next up is Bad Times at the El Royale. This is a movie written and directed by Drew Goddard, who you will know from writing The Martian. He was also a writer on Cabin in the Woods. He originally wrote for Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel way back in the day, and now has gone through Hollywood to write, produce. Like, he was a producer on Lost for a bit, some of the good parts. He was a producer on the first season of Daredevil. He's been all over the place. But I really like him, and I'm into this trailer. So, Matt, in or out?
I think in. Some of those things that you just told me made me question that, but it looks really fun. It's got a great looking cast, and not much else to say. I mean, it just looks like one of those things that's going to be like a classic crime, chaos murder movie. It kind of reminded me a bit of like Coen Brothers, but a bit more over the top.
Yeah, and that cast is stacked. Holy crap.
Yeah. That was my comment as I finished watching it. I was like, it has everyone. Okay.
It does. I mean, Chris Hemsworth, Dakota Johnson, John Hamm, Nick Offerman, Jeff Bridges. Like, this is a ridiculous cast.
Yeah.
All right, Michael. How come?
It just seems like it's all the worst parts of like Joss Whedon and Quentin Tarantino rolled into one movie, and Saw.
And Saw?
Yeah, a little bit Saw in there.
How do you mean?
Well, it's
Don't you love Quentin Tarantino?
Yes, but this is the bad parts of Quentin Tarantino.
Why?
Where it's just like, it's just like it's like a gimmick. I don't know. It's like something about the characters. It's something about the kind of eclecticness of the characters and the kind of like arbitrariness of the ridiculousness of the idea of like, and then there's like a hotel and then they're like watching them through windows, and I don't know, it just kind of reminded me of Tarantino.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
I don't think that's an unfair comparison.
It kind of like, it reminds me a bit of that movie Smokin' Aces, which just seemed to be like, let's just create a cast of crazy murderers and just kind of throw them all into the pot together and just have a bunch of people shoot each other.
Yeah, and that's a Tarantino movie, what you've just described.
But Tarantino movies usually have like nuance in character.
Well, correct, but I don't think we can tell that from the trailer. But if it does have nuance in character, then I'll probably like it. But my impression from the trailer is that it didn't show me that.
I don't think trailers try to sell you on nuance. I don't think that's the job of a trailer.
I think they try to sell you on character, though. Generally, they want you to have some idea of like they want you to latch on to at least one character so that you feel like you want to see what happens.
I mean, there's yes, but they can't like explain the characters to you.
Correct.
Like, there's 7 characters in this movie. I mean, did the trailer for Hateful Eight explain every single one of the characters?
No, but it was presented in a way where I wanted to learn more about them. Whereas the characters in this that were presented, I was just like, oh, it's like his deal is that he's a preacher.
I mean, I think specifically in the trailer, he says he's not a preacher. So, no.
He looks like a preacher. Look,
I mean, he's faking.
Look, I just didn't get a good feel about this movie, okay? I wouldn't... If this movie approached me in stuck traffic, I would lock my car doors discreetly.
All right.
I mean, I definitely see the thing like my mind could be changed about this movie if I hear, negative expectations about it. So yeah, we'll see.
All right. Last and certainly not least, we have the trailer for the new Halloween movie. This is technically a sequel to the original Halloween that ignores all of the other Halloween sequels.
My favorite kind of thing.
Anyway, it's directed by David Gordon Green, who is wonderful. He directed Joe. He directed a bunch of stuff with...
there was a movie called Joe?
Yeah, it was a really good movie.
I thought you just forgot what you were saying and moved on. Sorry, continue.
No, it's a really good Nick Cage movie. I mean, he started with... his first few movies were like comedies. Like he did Pineapple Express, he did Your Highness, he did very silly comedies with Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. They're kind of teamed up, and this is kind of a team up too, because this movie is written by David Gordon Green and Danny McBride. Danny McBride wrote the screenplay to this movie.
Interesting.
So with
the
all
comedian?
that, yes, the comedian.
Okay.
With all that, Matt, what do you think of Halloween?
Well, so here's the thing. I very rarely to never see horror movies if I can help it, because they scare me, which seems like a sufficient reason. But I mean, it looks like a really good movie. If I were one for horror movies, I would probably be all in on this. I just, like, if I'm being honest, the odds that I'm going to go to the theater and see this are virtually zero.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. So in with the caveat that you will probably never see it.
Yeah, let's go with that.
All right. Michael?
Out, because it's a remake and I'm boycotting remakes.
It's not really a remake.
I mean,
though.
but they're doing it in the spirit of a remake. Look, the envelope, the umbrella that my boycotts covers more of the spirit than the technicality.
I mean, it's quite literally a sequel.
But it's a remake. I mean, come on.
But it's Jamie Lee Curtis.
They're cashing in on how they're like, what is an old thing that we haven't done in a while that people will remember fondly?
I mean, they've done a bunch of Halloween sequels very recently.
I didn't notice.
Crazy old Jamie Lee Curtis action.
So it's a reboot, is what you're saying?
No,
because they're rebooting the sequels.
Is a reboot cool?
I guess they're rebooting the sequels.
Okay,
but...
let me amend my statement. I'm boycotting reboots.
But okay,
anything with a re in it,
yeah,
or a C.
I mean, like, your lines are dumb and they're illogical. I think this trailer is fantastic. It's not that I didn't trust David Gordon Green, but Halloween is one of my favorite horror movies, and I was really worried about what Danny McBride would do with this, but this looks great. Like you said, Matt, old kind of crazy Jamie Lee Curtis, I think works very well. The scenes inside the hospital, like that like far out shot where the hospital courtyard where it's like checkered, like that's beautiful and almost terrifying on its own. I don't know. It just looks really solid. Like the last two Halloween movies were actually reboots made by Rob Zombie, and I wasn't in love with those movies. I wasn't in love with the direction he took the character, and John Carpenter has fully signed off on this, and therefore I am in. This was a great trailer. Wonderful.
Yeah, it almost made me want to see it, which is saying something.
I will say, I know you don't like horror movies.
I don't even not like them. I'm like, if you were like, Matt, go see it. You have time to see it. I would like find some reason why I didn't have to go see it. Like, because I just know that it would like scare me, and I would, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the original Halloween, the 1978 Halloween movie, is really, really good, and it still really holds up. I just watched Friday the 13th again for the first time in a while with my wife, and that movie did not hold up as well. But Halloween, man, that holds up. That's a great movie.
Yeah.
And it might not be too scary because that was like 40 years ago, and we don't scare as easily these days. So.
Well, I'm pretty sure I've seen Halloween, but
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for trailers. So for those of you keeping score at home, Michael said in once.
Yeah. So if you mark down 1 on your score sheet, then you, I guess, win or something.
Yeah. Please mail your forms to dailyplanetfilms@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And
right.
I'd look forward to see if anyone actually does anything.
I think if everyone had looked at the list ahead of time, they could have guessed the one Michael was going to be in on.
Yeah. We should make this interactive.
We should.
Well, all right. It's too late now.
It is too late, and it's time to move on to the main event. We've wasted enough time on these movies that Michael hates for no logical reason. Let's talk about a movie that Michael hates for maybe a logical reason. Let's talk about Paprika. When a machine that allows therapists to enter their patients' dreams is stolen, all hell breaks loose. Only a young female therapist, Paprika, can stop it. And that is the summary of Paprika from IMDb. It's a movie about a dream machine and dreams and weirdness. So where do we start on this movie? I guess, Michael...
Let's do a compliment sandwich.
That's a good idea. So, I... don't like anime. We've talked about this.
Okay, good start.
it's not a great No, I'll circle around to the compliment. Don't you worry.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why this movie was picked for us was because I have voiced my displeasure over Japanese animation in general many times throughout the life of this podcast and throughout all the other shows we do. And people have decided that no, we have to fix that by making you watch some things that you had never seen before and hoping that you will like them. And the thing that I will say about this movie, and that is the first Satoshi Kon movie I've seen, I thought this was a very pretty movie. The things that I continually say about animation is that I find a lot of the art direction, a lot of times like cheap looking, and like the animation itself cutting corners, using still images a lot, like not doing anything with the quote unquote camera in the world. That was not the case with this movie. I thought it was doing some very, very pretty things, and I quite liked the art direction a lot. So I didn't like this movie very much though. And I just want to make it clear, it's not for all the reasons I normally dislike anime. So with that, Michael, what did you think of this movie? And we'll get into detail after we go around the table once.
Well, first, I guess I want to respond to your animation comment, because I think on that aspect of it, I liked the art direction less than most animes. Because one of the things I really like about anime is the like still framiness of it. Because it's kind of like frames from a comic book or a graphic novel or a visual novel or whatever the heck. And thus they're able to like spend more times painting the background and stuff. So I don't really like it when they eschew that for like really fluid, like constantly moving animation, which this was more of. And all of the corners were rounded, and I like animation with sharp edges.
Okay. That's a very specific complaint.
Yes. But okay, in terms of the movie, there were things I liked about it, but I think ultimately it kind of sabotaged itself with its premise of like the dream and real worlds are kind of merging together, because instead of being intrigued and curious and like having that as a source of tension, where I'm not sure if they're currently in a dream world or a real world, I just kind of it felt really ungrounded. So I just kind of always assumed they were in a dream world and that nothing mattered very much. And I think that ultimately sabotaged the movie for me in a lot of ways.
Okay, I think we'll get into some of that in a bit. But first, Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, more like Scott, I think I liked the animation style quite a lot and thought it was very beautiful. And throughout the whole thing, it's full of very striking both like images and just the way things are shot. Like I particularly like sort of the like recurring dream sequence that the detective keeps having, where it's like different sort of scenes from different dream fragments, basically, which turn out to be different like genres of movie, which I think is a fun like reveal.
Yeah.
And there are certain aspects of the plotting that I thought were a bit clever. But a bit like Michael said, it in a movie like this, which is basically like it's basically a murder mystery plot, or just a mystery plot, let's say. In a story like that, there are certain tropes that you obviously don't have to follow tropes, but if you're going to break with the tropes or the archetypes of the genre you're working in, then you better have a good reason, and you'd better like compensate. And what they didn't do in this movie was they didn't really clarify to you what does the device do that's been stolen exactly? What are the like worst case risks of what could happen? What are the rules just in general? Who are these people who are after it, and what is their authority here to pursue it? Like you don't really understand what's happening, and thus instead of as you're watching a mystery, you're supposed to be basically keeping up with the protagonists as they unravel the mystery, and maybe you get something just a moment before they do, maybe you get it just a moment after they do, but you're basically on the same page as them as you're marching through the revelation of the plot until you get to usually some interesting twist at the end that reveals all, and it's satisfying because it wasn't something that you expected, but perhaps is something you could have figured out. Okay, none of that was true in this movie because you were not marching in lockstep with the characters. You're actually just sort of watching them because you don't share their basis of understanding of what's going on, and at no point are you really kind of brought into an understanding. At least for me, I was just sort of like at a certain point just passive, just completely passive viewing experience, which is not how I think you're meant to watch a mystery.
Yeah, I mean, I think here's what this movie did that didn't work for me. I think it was so attached to the idea of the dreams and dreams in general and exploration of dreams that it felt like to really dive into that, it had to eschew any kind of structure whatsoever. I don't think this movie has a structure to it. I think you're right that it is on the surface like a kind of a mystery. Who stole the thing? What do they want to do with it? But I don't know that I'm clear on the answers to those questions after finishing the movie. I mean, we know who was doing it, and he tells us why, but the chairman's actions at the end of the movie don't jive with what he was saying, why he wanted to stop their dream research, or at least to me. Maybe you guys picked up on something I didn't, but it just kind of like...
It seemed like a red herring. Like, it's like the one guy who's like, no, dreams are special and we must protect them. They decided to make the guy who did it at the end, but it didn't really seem like it was set up in a way that made it very impactful when that was revealed. It was like they just wanted to make sure you didn't know who it was.
Right. I mean, like, if you're going for, I want to make people feel like they're dreaming, then you have these nonsensical conversations that don't really go anywhere, that don't really do anything. You have all these weird imageries, you have these weird moments that seemingly don't tie together. And so I think it accomplished what dreaming feels like, which may be all it was going for, but it left me very cold because of that. You're absolutely right that, Matt, that I did not feel connected to any of these characters. I wasn't really concerned about what they wanted. I wasn't always sure about what they wanted. The movie kind of loops back to have this I'm not going to call it a love story, but this attraction between two of our main characters. And I was like, oh, whoa, that's coming out of nowhere. And at that point, I just didn't care about the characters enough to really buy into that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about... trying to look up their names because I forgot.
Dr. Chiba and Tokita.
And Tokita. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about like just the rules. Like I of course I automatically go to like fixing the movie. And perhaps you're right. Perhaps what I'm about to say is extremely dumb, because if they did what I'm about to say, then they would lose that dreamlike quality. But if you compare this kind of movie to either The Cell or Inception, which are both two movies where you can go into other people's minds using a technology headset thing, more or less, then both of those movies spend entire scenes setting up what the device can and can't do. And in fact, everything hinges on your understanding of what it can and can't do, and what the risks are. And this movie, I watched the movie and I still don't actually know, like, was everyone hallucinating everything that happened? Or is there actually like a parallel dimension dream world which was bleeding into our world? And like, because like you would see like a giant dude in the dream smash into a wall, and then like when like at the end of the movie, when the dream thing ended, like the hole in the wall was still there, but the dream guy was gone. And it's like, so wait, the thing actually came into our reality and smashed a hole in the wall? That's not just a dream. That's a whole different metaphysics.
Yeah. You're absolutely right that this basically what they do in the first 5 minutes of the movie is they have this device, and then they explain that the device doesn't matter because the DC Mini, he hadn't put the access controls in it yet, so anyone who's ever been plugged into the device is now susceptible to being tricked by a dream at any time, basically, is what they say. So the device itself becomes meaningless almost at that point, and you hardly ever see it. And the comparison to Inception is obviously the most obvious one, right? I mean, these are two movies dealing with dreams and in very different ways. And technically, Inception came out after this movie, but Chris Nolan was writing that movie for about 10 years. So I don't think anyone could make an argument that he looked at Paprika and stole this idea. But without just directly comparing them, the reason why I think Inception works in ways that this movie doesn't is those rules, is that establishment. Michael, you and I were talking about Inception is this weird, trippy stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense, anchored to a very kind of established, known story structure. It's a heist film in a dream.
Right. And there's a number of things he does to make sure you understand the rules, right? Which is like having the character who's new to the squad who's actually being explained the rules, which helps. But then things like having the top as the like totem for knowing whether you're in the dream or not, and using that as a way to show that the film is aware of the ambiguity it's showing you, instead of in this where it's like, are we supposed to even know, or is it supposed to be ambiguous? I can't really tell because of how they presented it.
And there's not even any difference. Like it's there is one scene where one character thinks they wake up, and then it turns out they didn't wake up. But then, like later, it's like it doesn't actually matter,
right? Because the goofy stuff still happens. So so maybe the whole thing was a dream. But
I don't even think there's like such a thing as a dream. There's like an alternate dimension that bleeds into ours, and they just call it a dream. It's not, though. It's a unless I'm just interpreting it wrong. It could be that that it's just hallucinations or something. I don't know. Perhaps I'm being like too literal, and like you said, you're just supposed to be like it's supposed to be like a dream. It's supposed to not quite feel coherent. I don't know.
Right. And I think that if you asked Satoshi Shikan that question, he'd probably say, "Yeah, that's up to your interpretation. Here's some images, and you can interpret it." And I'm not gonna like shit on interpretive movies. Like, one of my favorite movies of this year is Annihilation, which is a movie where a whole bunch of nonsense happens. I just felt like, at least mixed into that nonsense, I was anchored by understanding who the characters are and what the characters want. And I was desperately trying to grasp that throughout this movie, and I just never quite got there. I mean, we haven't even talked about, like, our main character, Chiba, is also Paprika, who is I guess a dream world avatar of her, but also, like, maybe her subconscious. Maybe that's what we're saying. This is her subconscious, who is different from her conscious self, which is an interesting thing to explore, but I just don't feel like it does anything with it.
I think that what they were going for is, like, Paprika is who Dr. Chiba, like, thinks she should be. She's suppressing, like, the real part of herself, which is the one who's in love with the fat doctor.
Gotcha.
And you can kind of, like, go back and maybe, like, put in a lot of things along those lines, but it didn't really come across very well enough in the movie that, like, when they reveal the hidden parts of, like, her desires or whatever at the end, it just feels pretty random. Like, it doesn't seem like it's something. I guess the concise way of saying it, like, it doesn't seem like she's struggling with any identity issues throughout the movie. So that way, for that reason, it's not clear that, like, if she's kind of struggling with, like, who should I be, this person or that person.
Right. Exactly.
You don't really get that.
Yeah. If I understood that she was, like, insecure in herself and who she is and the person she's portraying, and Paprika is kind of an escape from that.
Right.
That would have landed a lot, but I never felt like the movie was doing it, and maybe I just missed it, but I just never felt that.
No, yeah, neither did I. It was, it did feel a bit. It took me a really long time to really not just be confused by Paprika and be like, oh, it's her. Wait, but is it? And now they're both there at the same time. And she seems kind of surprised. And then another thing is, like, when all this weird crap is happening, sometimes the characters seem a little bit surprised, but they never really seem, like, that concerned. I guess, like, what Matt was saying earlier about, like, what are the consequences? Like, can this destroy the actual world?
Yeah. I mean, one of the first things Inception did was established whether or not, if you die in the dream, do you die in real life? And at first they said no, and then later in Inception they said, oh, actually, yes, this time it is yes. I am not clear on that in this movie.
Right.
Because at one point, at the end of the movie, like, Chiba Atsuko is eaten by the giant Tokita robot and swallowed,
right,
and then is gone, and then the giant Tokita robot disappears later.
That just kind of like releases her true essence or something.
But that was Chiba in real life, because she's not in a dream, or is she?
Right. Right. That's the thing where at a certain point there stops being a difference, and then you're just like, I don't know what the rules are. I don't know if I should be afraid of things. Like, there were whole parts of the movie, like, where Paprika is running away from the guy who's become, like, so powerful, and, like, he says, like, this is my world now, and like, there's supposed to be some metaphysical, they just kind of tell you, like, oh yes, he's very powerful in the dream world now, I guess because he's been, like, stealing other people's minds to use. But I was just like, so wait, like instead of being in the scene of her, like, running away from him and transforming into a mermaid and transforming into other, like what should have been a cool scene of, like, someone doing, like, dreamlike things to escape from someone, I was just like, why doesn't she just like fight him or just like escape in some other way? Why is this even a contest? Like it's like, it doesn't seem like it should be a like, I was just confused and not engaged with it instead of being like you're not supposed to be having those thoughts when there's like an extremely hectic chase scene happening.
Yeah, and I loved that scene. I thought it was beautiful, like the transitions, the metamorphosis that happened, but that's never consistent, right? Because it feels like sometimes Paprika changes into the exact being she needs to be to escape the moment, and sometimes she's a butterfly that's pinned down to a board. Why couldn't she just transform into something that doesn't have wings that are pinned? I don't know. Like, I think maybe the movie just needed me to just roll with it a little more than I was willing to do. Just like say, okay, that's just what it is. But there's that whole thing with, so the chairman, and this is, I mean, like, this review is me trying to understand this movie, but because there's the chairman who is wheelchair bound, and then we also have his like secondhand guy who is Osanai. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Apologies, but who has a thing for Chiba, but the Chancellor was using him because he wanted to take over his mind so he could be his legs. Did I miss something there?
Yeah, it was a little bit unclear what that meant. But yes, basically he needed a henchman.
Gotcha. And so he turns into a giant dark thing at the end of a giant black him at the end of the movie that's covering the entire world in a dream, basically. And then Chiba appears, not in her Paprika form. She's not Paprika, she's herself, and swallows up all the dream because light counters darkness, so men are countered by women. So she eats him, and then the dream goes away. What
Something like that. I don't know. I mean, it's more the same thing we've been talking about, where we don't understand the rules enough. So, like, why couldn't she just do this right away?
I think actually, as I was watching it, I wasn't spending a lot of time asking these questions, other than the ones particularly the scene where she's trying to run away, and I was just like, I noticed that I don't care about this because I don't understand why she doesn't just run away differently. But like those most of those scenes, I was just like, okay, whatever. Like, because again, I think it works really well as like this hallucinogenic trip, because like that's the way the movie begins. It begins in a dream, and it kind of never like settles down firmly, and so it's interesting in that way, in like a stylistic way. And I think that it may just frankly be a mistake to try to like talk about it as if it's comparable to Inception. I think my problem is then even if I accept that, even if I'm like, yeah, you're just doing it wrong to try to understand what the rules are, even then I'm like, well, then what do I have left to talk about? Well, I could talk about the art, which I liked. Okay, I could talk about the characters, which I think we all agree were pretty unfocused, and I'm kind of not even sure what their deal was in almost all cases. And because it's a dream, basically the plot doesn't have to be coherent. So
yeah, and I think the mistake there, as I said, it's fine to make an incoherent plot. It's fine to make a movie that is more a trip than it is something that you're examining story structure wise. But I think setting this around kind of a mystery, like, mysteries demand to be solved. That's like the point of a mystery story, like, is that you solve the mystery, and the tension comes from the whodunit and why. The motive and the person are why people read and watch mystery stories. So if you frame it in that way and then say, well, none of this matters because it's a dream, then I think that's where it lost it for me.
I think that's a really good point. I think that's a good way of saying why it felt we're all kind of like searching for things that maybe it didn't intend, and it's because it framed it in a way that you should be searching for those things.
Yeah. And I think like the specifics of how the dream world works, what are the rules of the dream, matter so much less to me than the specifics of what does X character want. And that is where I felt like I was never clear. I was never clear about what are the wants and needs of these characters. With one exception. And this is, I want to get into the part of the movie I actually quite liked a lot. I liked the detective and his, what is relegated to a B plot, a lot. I liked the story of a man who is stuck on a case, and so he goes to this dream therapist to try to figure out what's going on, and then kind of unlocks the mystery behind a guilt that he feels for something he did many years ago, and the therapy actually works him through that, and he learns to accept it and realizes why he hates movies so much and learns to embrace movies. And I thought that was a wonderfully done thing that is kind of just relegated to the background of the story. And part of me was almost like, I wish I could just have this as the movie.
Yeah, there were definitely some really good elements there, but I think that was sabotaged for me by his involvement in the actual plot. It felt like he just kind of stumbled into it. It wasn't, he wasn't like, it didn't seem like he was formally investigating things, and it was kind of unclear like what his connection was to everyone, and how many, like what his relationship was to Paprika, and like how many, because it seemed like they were actually like in a relationship or something in the first scene.
Something like that.
It's confusing.
It took a while to figure that out, and it kind of just made me. It made me not focus so much on whatever his backstory was, because I was just like, "What? Why is he here?"
Well, I mean, his backstory is very background. Like his big revelation happens. It's in the middle of the movie, but we kind of just rush past it.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Well, I was
because it's happening
it
at the same time as like the important.
Yeah.
Like main plot is unraveling with Dr. Chiba.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was expecting it to be like the guy from his past is actually the big bad somehow, or somehow it would be connected, but it's not connected. Like it's just not connected. So
yeah,
which is, I guess, fine, but then, like, I guess my problem is his character could have basically been like excised from the movie with no impact.
I know, and that's why that's why it's a really bummer for me, because I think his character worked, and his character, I mean, to me, felt like the one that the movie. It's not that the movie cared about the most, but that maybe related to the creators of the film the most. I do think it's a little bit telling that this is a movie that, not on its surface, but in parts of it is very much about films. This whole guy, like we stopped the movie to have Detective Kagawa dressed exactly like Akira Kurosawa, by the way, like he's doing a Kurosawa impression for some reason, explain what the 180-degree rule is in filmmaking and explain what a pan is. Like I liked these scenes because I'm a film nerd and I know exactly what the line he was discussing was, but I don't get why they're in the movie.
Yeah, he was the most human of the characters, but it does seem like he was just thrown in.
Right. And that's why, like, my favorite thing that the movie did was that it at least added his growth as a character into the main story by having him be the one that shoots Osanai, as like him finishing the movie, quote unquote. And
right.
Is what,
yeah.
But as soon as you look at it for too long, it's like, well, wait, so if you die in the dream, then you are dead, and because what?
But yeah, I mean, again, it was never clear whether they ever left the dream, because it's not like he just like died and was brought out on a stretcher. He was like sucked into a black hole that appeared in the guy's room.
Yeah.
So sure,
True.
Yeah, I buy that. But
true.
Yeah, that part did kind of come full circle, and that was a pleasing finish to his little side story. But unfortunately, it was just the side story. It was in no way connected.
And it could be that this arc wasn't even that good. It's just I'm grasping onto it because it's the only one that I am clear on, that I very much know his starting position and his ending position.
They
in
needed
this
something
film.
like that for the main characters. They needed something like that for Chiba. Because
Yeah.
even though she's like the main character that every other character is obsessed with for some reason, she's got no depth or history.
Characteristics.
I don't know anything about her at all. Like, she's just kind of like vaguely cool, I guess.
And this to me is a typical anime thing. And I'm sorry I'm getting stereotypical here, but is the female character that everyone just likes because they're the female character. And that's where I felt the most anime in this story.
Yeah, I agree. That and the tentacle porn.
Yeah, there was that. I sent you that picture while I was watching it. I was like, you're doing great so far. Oh, no, we're going to have the naked woman getting tentacles in her mouth for reasons.
Yeah, we have to do this.
Yeah, I know. I that stuff bothers me as well. But but in a movie, it's fairly unforgivable to have a main character who you don't even if that stuff's present to not characterize them at all.
Yeah, I completely agree.
It took me a very long time to like.
Why didn't they just give her the detective's backstory, right? Because he was already an unnecessary character.
Just why was she in the movie? Is my question.
Or that.
You've both said she's the main character, and I'm like, yeah, I guess she is, but she isn't a character. What is
right.
her arc, such as it is that she admits that she's attracted to a guy.
Yeah. But okay, here's the part about that scene that I don't understand, and maybe I'm just thinking too straightforward in a movie that kind of just bends and moves to whatever it wants. So the moment that she kind of realizes she likes the guy is a flashback. We flash back to the moment she pulls him off the elevator, and then she kind of embraces him. Is that not happening in the past? Is that just
a dream?
A dream?
I think she's like reliving that in a dream. I don't know. There's no answer to that because there's no coherent base reality in this movie.
Yeah.
I think my interpretation while watching it was that it was a flashback, but also because like dreams are real now, apparently it was also happening. And then she just like
went with it,
changed what happened basically by living it out a different way.
Okay.
And so her boss character also didn't have any depth to him. The short guy.
The chief. Yeah.
The fat guy. He
had a little.
You could kind of infer things about him because he was basically like he never grew up. And he had kind of a personality. But for someone who's going to be that critical to the ending, he needed more as well, more explanation of his relationship with Chiba. But
how did the chief survive falling out of arbitrarily?
They wrapped bandages around him for a scene, and then he was fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But
right.
that was that was some of the scenes I liked from the movie, and that was one of them, which was just like I liked the scene of like the refrigerators and stuff, like dancing to the music and the music.
Yeah, the parade was great. Like the parade was wonderful.
The music was really effectively creepy, especially when
Yeah.
juxtaposed with like that scientist like hurtling himself through a pane of glass off a window.
I can confirm that because I was watching it in bed with my wife sleeping next to me, and she woke up saying, "What the fuck is going on? What is that?"
Yeah, that was a great scene, and it's creepy. Like, if you keep the movie grounded, it's creepy if you show people kind of like going crazy and convincing themselves to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's the one scene where Chiba like is about to jump over the railing of the amusement park, and then it smash cuts to her about to jump off a balcony. And I thought that was super effective too. Like, just from a filmmaking standpoint, that was a really tense moment where you're like, "Oh, holy shit!" And those movements were so far and few between. Far between.
That was cool because at least there was enough coherence to that scene where you could be like, oh, now that I realized that she was dreaming here, I realized the moment at which she must have started dreaming, and like when she went down the tunnel in the floor, which is probably not actually there. And then you're like, oh, okay, now it makes sense,
right? Like
which is
all of those
something
moments
that really
happen
happens.
in the first bit of the film when you still think there's such a thing as reality.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
as soon as they throw that out, even if there's visually interesting scenes, they just don't have the same impact anymore.
Yep.
So, okay, question as we wrap this thing up. We've talked about the confusion of the movie. What do you think, after watching this movie, the movie is trying to say?
Yeah.
Does anyone have a guess?
I think we talked about this earlier, and I think I just don't. I don't want to say it's not saying anything, but
Well, I think
but I don't know that it's trying to say much.
I think more than trying to say something, it's trying to explore something.
I think that's a fair statement. Yeah.
It's trying to explore the nature of reality and dreams, but
and people, I think
and,
it is.
and people.
See,
But I don't know if I like grew as a result of this exploration. Or maybe even the director didn't. He was just like, I feel like there was something here, but it didn't quite come together.
Yeah.
Here's one, probably the biggest problem I have with like interpreting it is that this is not how dreams are like, and I don't just like, this is just not what dreams are like. Like when you're in a dream, you're not like, oh no, I'm being chased by a monster, I guess I'll sprout wings and then like turn into a giant robot, or like you don't have freedom of action in a dream. The thing about dreams is that everything that's happening in them, no matter how absurd, doesn't feel absurd, and thus like the weirdness of seeing a tentacle monster, you're not like, whoa, a tentacle monster, that's weird. You're like, oh, there's a tentacle monster there, I need to run away from it because
Yeah.
because yeah, and like it's entirely focusing on the wrong thing about dreams. That's what's interesting about like again, dreams are not a free-for-all virtual reality play world. Like that is never what any dream has ever been like, unless you're like a spectacularly skilled lucid dreamer, which no one is. So I'm just like, well, you're not really talking about dreams. You're not like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's not about dreams. It's about this pretend thing
Right.
that is not what actual dreams are like.
Yeah. Understandable. Yeah. I wrestle with a lot, and I will say that this movie made me think, which is, I guess, what it's going for, because I've been thinking about this movie since I watched it, trying to kind of unlock it. And I think where I kind of settle on is that this is a movie that maybe just doesn't want to be unlocked and just wants to be an experience. And it certainly was an experience. There were moments that I genuinely enjoyed what I was watching. It is nice to see an anime film that I find genuinely beautiful. I like we talked about, the coloring was very well done. I liked just about everything about the visual presentation of what was going on. It's just the characters and the story under that presentation I just couldn't get a hold of.
Yeah.
And I watched Inception again and today because I was like, I wonder if Inception holds up. That's a pretty good movie, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Movie.
I know.
I bet it does hold up, and it's probably did not make you think better of this movie in contrast.
No, it's still, I mean, it's still too exposition-y for me, but if this is the alternative to too much exposition, then maybe I'll take too much exposition.
Yeah, now you can appreciate the exposition because you know what happens without it.
Yeah. Giant men being sucked into the mouth of a giant woman who grows big every time. Maybe it's all about growing up.
Sure, let's go with that.
There actually were a lot of references to that, but yeah.
How there's several times throughout the movie they pointed out surprisingly that Paprika was a woman. And I thought what they were setting up there was that like she's the alter ego of one of the men characters and not Chiba, but then that's not what happens. So I do you guys remember that? Am I just making that up?
Don't
I thought there's several times people pointed out that how odd it was that Paprika was a woman.
Did you do the dub or the subtitles?
I did the subtitles.
Yeah, so did we. I don't remember that, but I might have just missed it.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think they're surprised. I thought, well, the impression I got was their surprise was that Paprika was a person who didn't look like Paprika and not necessarily that she was a woman.
Gotcha. All right, so that is our not very favorable view of Paprika. I think we were able to at least talk about the things that we liked, though. So we didn't just rip the thing apart for an hour. We have moments of it that we appreciated.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like I wasn't like I didn't like regret watching it. I was just like, it's one of those movies where you walk away from it thinking about how you would fix it, which is better than a movie where you walk away from it just thinking like, well, that was trash and not worth fixing.
Yeah. Like I said, it's not. I don't call it a forgettable movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think if its job was to be a very beautiful, trippy piece of kind of nonsense, mission accomplished.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna download that music that plays in the parade and use it in really like strange scenarios that would freak people out.
Yeah.
If people fall asleep in your class, you should play it in their ears.
Right.
Have some hidden speakers.
Then have like a poster of refrigerators dancing or something in front of their face when they wake up or something.
Yes. Man, I mean the parade was great. More of the parade.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those things where I was like, that's not really a thing that happens in dreams. That's like a cliche about what happens in dreams.
Yeah, maybe this whole movie was maybe Satoshi Kon had never dreamed before, and this was his kind of attempt to figure out what it might be like. And then he made the movie, and all his friends were like, "That's nothing like it's like." And he's like, "Oh, what do I do with the movie then?"
Yeah,
you get all kinds of awards because the critics kind of loved this movie, which surprises me.
It doesn't surprise me. This is exactly the kind of trash that critics like. Sorry, Scott.
Okay. The exact kind of attitude that we should not have towards people who are trained at reviewing movies.
Yeah, whatever. Charlatans.
All right, let's move on to our last thing. Let's talk about what we have been watching.
What have you been watching? What have I been watching? Well, I asked you first, so you better tell me.
Michael, you go first.
Well, I've got two things here. None of them I watched. One of them I played, which is a video game called Wizard of Legend.
Did you watch yourself play it?
Like in an out-of-body experience sort of way?
No, I mean, you were watching it while you were playing it, were you not?
I guess technically.
Still counts.
Okay. I watched the screen as I used keys and a mouse to control a wizard and it's like a roguelite type game, action roguelite, kind of like Binding of Isaac, if you're familiar with that. But you go room to room fighting things, and it's really awesome because it's basically like Avatar: The Last Airbender martial arts magic. So there's like really stylistic new spells you can unlock, and there's like 60 different spells or some big number like that. So it's super fun and replayable, and I've been enjoying that. Second thing that I've watched were the pages of a book as I read it, which was called The Last Unicorn. So I'm in the process of making my way through the top 33 fantasy books of all time as declared by some random website. And this was a part of that. And this is an older fantasy book that I somehow missed, but is quite a classic one. And there was an 80s movie as well that, Scott, you might have been familiar with. I don't know. It was an animated movie in the 80s called The Last Unicorn.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
But it's awesome. And I'm happy that these like awesome, because I'm often frustrated with fantasy where I'll like read a bunch and be like, oh, I guess I've already read all the good fantasy. but this was like a gem that had somehow passed my notice, and then I found, and it's like a short novella. It's about a unicorn who like lives in a forest and then realizes that she might be the last unicorn, and then goes to find the other unicorns. But the prose is awesome. It's like really like funny and delightfully written, and I enjoyed it.
Awesome.
You should read that.
Never heard of that book. Didn't know it was related to the movie.
I heard the movie was good too, but I've not seen the movie.
Cool. I will put that on my list.
Ebert liked the movie. So
what does that guy know?
Well,
I thought we didn't respect critics, Michael. You got to make up your mind.
I'm trying to persuade you though, and you care what the critics think. And Ebert is the critic who has existed and always will exist in our hearts.
Oh, I miss him.
See?
Anyway, Matt, what are your things?
I rewatched The Last Jedi, so it's only the second time I've seen it. And it was interesting because I like The Last Jedi. I don't think I like it as much as you, Scott, but you like it quite a bit. And I don't have I have my like tweaks that I would make, I suppose you could say. But what was interesting to me was rewatching it was a very different experience from watching it the first time, and enjoyable in a very different way. And it reminded me how like I have no recollection of what it was like to watch The Empire Strikes Back the first time, because that was when I was like 7 or something. But I only know rewatching The Empire Strikes Back, where not only do you know how the movie ends, but you know how the series ends every time you watch it. So I was rewatching this movie, and I was like very aware that the fact that I knew how it ended was completely changing kind of how I was interpreting and watching it. And it was just kind of a very interesting meta experience of being like this is going to be yet a different movie when the third movie comes out, and I will watch it in yet an entirely different way from this. And just kind of made me feel like you can't quite judge a movie like this based on the first time you watch it. Probably a good policy to just watch all movies more than once, because you can pay attention to different things knowing how the plot actually goes.
Shit, I guess we gotta watch Paprika again.
I guess so, yeah.
What have you done?
I know, shouldn't have said that.
No, I do agree that this is definitely a movie that kind of opens itself up to you the more times you watch it.
Yeah. And I'll probably watch it again at some point and report back then.
All right.
The second thing that I did is I read the new Peter Watts novella-ish thing. Apparently it's long enough to be a novel, but he says it's a novella called The Freeze Frame Revolution, and it takes place in kind of one of his like existing kind of worlds that he set up, and it's a very awesome premise, and it's a world and a premise that lends itself to kind of auxiliary awesome premises, and does not disappoint. I mean, it's no Blind Sight, of course, but it's good. It's good Peter Watts stuff. It's got good characters. It's got good science fiction ideas. It's snappy and quick. You know, it's like I said, it's very short, and
yeah, this thing came out on Tuesday, and you announced that you had finished it on Tuesday.
Maybe that doesn't quite sound plausible. I don't think I read it that quickly, but
I feel like you did.
I did read it pretty quickly. Yeah, it's short, and you know, thus it's fast paced, and you get through it quickly, and it's great. I recommend it.
Awesome. That is Freeze Frame Revolution. We got a lot of books this week. I'm glad. All right, I watched 2 new movies, the movies that both came out this weekend. The first was Ocean's 8, the movie that we originally were planning on doing a whole episode about. And then I watched it, guys, and realized that there's not a whole lot to talk about here.
Oh, no.
Ocean's 8 is a fine movie. It's absolutely fine. exactly middle of the road. I think there's some really good performances in there, mixed in with some not so good performances. I think Sandra Bullock is actually not very good in this movie. She's kind of playing a very standoffish, cold character, and that doesn't really work with what's going on here. Cate Blanchett, on the other hand, is great. I loved her character. I wish she was in the story more. Anne Hathaway is really good as well. All the other characters are pretty interesting. I just wasn't in love with Debbie Ocean. But it's a very typical Ocean's film in that it's kind of just like a fun heist movie that doesn't have a lot of thought in it. Like there's not like it's never going to go probably on your favorite heist movies ever. It's fun seeing all these women like play off of each other, but outside of that, there's not really much else to talk about. I kind of missed Steven Soderbergh a bit. I think Gary Ross, who both wrote and directed it, does a good job, but Soderbergh's a better director. So
thanks for letting me off the hook on this one. I was going through a emotional roller coaster of not wanting to see it because, of course, it's basically a reboot, and then
it's literally not a reboot. It's just a sequel. Like it's literally just a sequel.
It's basically a reboot. And
it's
then
not. It's a sequel.
It's been a big gap. And then you were like, "But Michael, you're my heist guy. You see the heist movies with me." And then I was like, "Oh no, I can't disappoint my good friend Scott. I guess I'll go watch it." And then you told me I didn't have to, and I was so thankful.
You're welcome.
This is disappointing though, because I really thought this was going to be good actually.
See, the thing is, I probably would still recommend it.
Okay.
I mean, Michael would hate it, but I still think people should check out this movie. I just don't think you need to like rush out to the theater to check it out.
Yeah.
And lastly, I watched Hereditary, the new horror film. It's by, I think, first-time director Ari Aster. He also wrote the film. This was getting a lot of buzz in the film festival circuit, and all this talk came out of South by Southwest about how scary this movie was, and I was like, come on, that's not going to be that. This movie is terrifying. This movie is horrifying. This movie is uncomfortable. I saw this by myself because my wife will not see these movies with me, and I was visibly uncomfortable in the theater. It is a wonderfully crafted movie. It will scare the hell out of you. It will disturb you to no end. I loved every minute of it. I don't want to ever watch this movie again. I will never, ever, 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 ever watch this movie again. But damn, heartily recommend Heredity.
Sounds great. I will never see this movie.
Hereditary, it's not Heredity. I would definitely I came back. I know my wife, and I know the type of movies she watches and the type of scary movies she can handle. And I was like, will be glad you did not come to this movie with me. Jeez, it's rough. It's very rough, but this is exactly what it's going for, and it succeeds wonderfully at it. So rousing success, one of my favorite movies of the year, but don't want to see it again. So that's Hereditary. Why can't I talk? It is out in theaters right now. I think it's in wide release. It did really well. It was A24, the studio's biggest opening weekend of their company's career. So good for them.
Cool.
The movie deserves it.
Yeah.
Way to go, Hereditary.
Yep. So that's all we had for you guys this week. If you have any questions or comments, or just want to let us know why we are wrong about Paprika, you can reach out to us via email at dailyplanetfilms@gmail.com or on Twitter at dailyplanetfilms. Let us know what you think, guys.
And be sure to let us know also what you think about reboots and biopics.
Yeah,
I guess you
definitely
can do that too.
And reboot and biopic-like movies that aren't technically those things, but and have the essence of them.
The spread of that cancer into, culture, which is obviously an alarming trend.
Yeah, how dare we add drama to real life events?
I'm glad you guys are finally with me on this.
It's not like human beings have been doing that since the dawn of storytelling or anything.
Or that is the essence of storytelling, perhaps. No, this is a new weird thing.
It's a new thing, and it's disturbing, and we should all be concerned about it. And you should probably write your local representative.
Yes, and this is all why you should subscribe to this podcast so that you never miss an episode of content where we warn you about this type of thing. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
Yes, there's tons of great content here, and more coming every day, especially when Michael is on, and we get to hear all about the deep state of the movie world that's planning on destroying moviedom for all time.
Yeah.
But you can find all this stuff at dailyplanetfilms.com. And if you like what we do here and you want to support us, consider becoming a patron of the Daily Planet. You can pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to ensure we keep growing and keep making new content. And you get tons of cool rewards. This entire episode is only here because Brent was nice enough to contribute to us. And you can do that too. So head on over to patreon.com/dailyplanetfilms.
Yeah, and also please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content we make here.
All right, guys, we will be back in 2 weeks for a new episode covering probably Incredibles 2. I know it'll be out for a week by then, but I can't not talk to Matt about this movie. I can't do it.
Yeah, we'll see it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Podcast is over, it's done. We hope you all had some fun. Go back to your work or your school, maybe the gym. Hey, that's cool. Regardless, just go away. But please come back next Friday.